yesterday, and she was talking about she's been unhappy in a relationship for 10 years. But she stayed around and trying to figure out what to do. But she had all these stories about her husband that, as we dug in, they weren't really true. And she had stories about herself that weren't really true. It was the beliefs that were the glue that was holding her in place. And they were really three types of beliefs when you have learned helplessness. Jot them down. There are 3 P's. Learned helplessness means, number 1, you think the problem is pervasive. Pervasive means you think because your finances are screwed up, your whole life is screwed up. What I loved about Kathy earlier and her son was she's homeless, she's in her car under a bridge, but she still find a way, her and her son, to have joy, to look out at the ocean, to see, the fish, to feel connected, to still play together, to still be in love with each other. As bad as the situation is, it's not pervasive. It doesn't affect your whole life unless you believe it. But once you believe, because I don't have a great relationship, or I never have, I never will, and therefore my whole life is screwed, or because, I haven't figured out my career, or because my family is in conflict, I can never be where once you believe a problem is pervasive, it starts destroying your life. How many follow this? Say I. But the second P is even more intense. When people start thinking the problem is permanent, that's when you really get into learned helplessness. What does permanent mean? Permanent means you think no matter what I do, nothing will work. I'll give you an example of how they demonstrate this with animals. I don't support this research, but I'll just tell you they do this. Around the country, they've done this study over and over again. They'll take a dog or a monkey. They've done it with monkeys as well. And it's a standard protocol. They take them to this little room, and there's a net in the middle of the room that's about the size of a tennis court net, roughly. And on the front side of the room where they open the door and they let the dog or the monkey in, there are 2 colored squares, and on the other side of that, there are 2 colored squares. So there's a red one, a yellow one, a green one, and a blue one. And so what do? They open the room, and the dog or monkey goes in, they start moving around, everything's fine, and then they electrify on this side. They start with, let's say, the red square, and they electrify it. Meaning they get electrocuted if they're on that square, and the dog freaks out, the monkey freaks out. So what they do, they try to change, try to do anything, and then somehow by accident they end up on the next square, and there's no electricity there, and the pain goes away. So they notice the red was pain, they avoid the red. Perfect, I avoid relationship because it was so painful. Oh, I avoid money because it's bad, because it's sad. Oh, I avoid whatever, taking care of my body because it doesn't last. You get it? But it's what they do with the monkeys. The monkey links up red equals pain, so avoids the red. When it goes to the room next time, it runs straight for the yellow square, right? And then what do? These wonderful scientists, they electrify the red and the yellow square. Now the animal's freaking out. He can't go to the red, he can't go to the yellow, and all of a sudden, in the last-ditch effort to get out of pain, it jumps over the net. And when it jumps over the net, the pain stops, right? And sure enough, there is a green square they land on. There's no pain in the green square. So the next time they go, they open the room. What does the dog do, or the monkey? They jump over immediately. They don't stay anywhere. They jump over the fence, go straight immediately to the net, to the green side. Then what do these beautiful scientists do? They electrify the green square. Animals freaking out. Finally, there's one little part of the room they've not been to yet where there's a blue square, and they get off, and there's no pain. Oh, my God. Now they associate pain to the red square, pain to the yellow, pain to the green, but not to the blue. Open the room, it jumps over the net straight to the blue like that. Avoids all 3 squares immediately, and then you guessed it, they electrify all 4 squares. What happens when you electrify all 4 squares? The animal gets pain no matter what they do. Who's ever been in a place where you felt like you're screwed if you do and you're screwed if you don't do? How many have ever been in this horrible place? Make some noise if you know what I'm talking about. That's when we tend to go to learned helplessness. And by the way, what these animals do, both dogs and monkeys do the same thing. They fight it, and then they eventually just give up. They usually sit in a corner and bite themselves and defecate all over themselves. Now here's the good news. You and I are not monkeys. So we have a consciousness that can teach us it's not the squares that's the problem. It's not the relationship. It's not my business. It's not me, and it's not permanent. No problem is permanent, my friends. Only your soul is permanent. Right? Think about it. No bad economy is permanent. It's never happened in human history. No pandemic is permanent. I was trying to tell people when they're freaking out, this is the rest of my life forever. No, it's not. It's a painful winter, but it's not going to be forever. And it wasn't, and it isn't. Nothing is forever in that area. No problem is. But once you believe the problem is permanent, once you believe it, it is permanent because you don't even try. Do you remember the old metaphor of, in the early days, they take, the circus when they have a brand new elephant, little baby elephant, they tie a rope around his leg and they drive a stake deep in the ground and he fights usually for days until eventually he goes, I can't get out. It's a permanent problem, and they don't even try. Now the elephant's an adult elephant. One pull, it could bring down the entire, ring top. But they don't even try because they're conditioned. Conditioning is what we have to change. You can't just change your belief. You've got to change your wiring. Change your wiring, the whole game's going to change for you. So that's what our focus is here. And then the third P is when you start thinking the problem is personal, right? It's personal. It's me. I can't have a relationship. I'm just not a good person. I'm not beautiful. I'm not intelligent. I'm not sexy. I can't turn my finances around. I've tried everything, and it's affecting my whole life. It's a permanent problem, and it's personal. When that happens, people just basically give up. And once you give up, again, it's self-fulfilling. So you've got to break out. Now, this is why you heard earlier she was talking about, I walked in with KK in the beginning, was talking about at UPW, we do this Dickens process I mentioned to you. It's a process of rewiring. That's what shifts somebody. If you don't rewire, nothing's going to shift in your life. And by the way, that process is so powerful that when Stanford did the study that they did, remember I told you yesterday, they followed up with people and they had a 70% decrease in negative emotions. 70% decrease in negative emotions, 50% increase in positive emotions. And the reason was because we got rid of the limitations in their nervous system. Pretty wild. And the study, and by the way, it's in the Journal of Psychiatry now. It's pretty amazing. Throw it up on the screen for people to give you an idea. But also, that's the 70-50, but also they found something else. Like they found all these other emotions increased as well. The anxiety emotions went through the ground. The positive emotions went up. They did them across the board. And show them the third one if you would here. This is really cool. People who did this, they go into a different biochemistry. This is what Stanford did. They followed me. They had a group of people that they put this $60,000 device on my chest while I was doing the whole seminar. And it measures everything, heart rate, variability, everything. During every break, they came and swabbed my mouth. They checked my DNA. They took my saliva. They checked my hormones. For 3 years, they did this. And they learned some wild things that go on in my body. And one of the things they discovered is I go into a state when I'm doing this event 12 hours a day and they call it the championship state. They've studied guys like Tom Brady and in the Tampa Bay Lightning, which won multiple times in the Stanley Cup and so forth. The people that get in a stressful situation, Tom Brady's down by 10 points and there's 2 minutes left and he wins the game, right? He's done it so many times. He has more Super Bowl rings than all sports teams in the NFL. It's unbelievable, one guy. And they said, here's why. There's a biochemical change these people go in where they call it the championship biochemistry, where your stress hormone cortisol drops. So the stress drops and your testosterone surges. So you feel this drive to follow through. They found this in me over and over again, but here's what's really cool. They then followed up and measured all the people in the seminar I did digitally, meaning just like this, but not this, the actual seminar, the 4-day seminar in the main studio. People around the world did the same thing, their biochemistry, and they all matched me, meaning you go into the same state with me. It's called mirror neurons. And people literally went that place. So throw up on the screen, this is what they found, a 300% increase in cognitive performance after the UPW. 300%, they've never seen like it in their lives. 159% increase in the learning hormones for retention. 139% increase in the performance biochemistry, the thing I'm talking to you about. So that's why a year later, people's lives have changed because we've rewired ourselves. It's not enough, please write down, it's not enough to understand. It's not enough to know. I've got to change my conditioning. So I hope you'll join me for that, or you got to do it to yourself. But it's not enough to have the understanding. Now, but as a quickie, just to get you started, in case I don't see you as well, let's do something really fast. Here's what I want you to do. I want you, stand up just for a second if you would. Stand up if you would. Shake your body out again. Shake it out. Make your move. Make your move. Make your move. Say yes.